Welcome, everyone, to the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. Today, I couldn't be more delighted to have Katie Fitzgerald, Global President and CEO of Ronald McDonald Houses. You're going to just have a heck of a time with this discussion. Katie is a dynamo. She leads an unbelievable organization helping people throughout. And Katie, thank you for coming on to the Power of Integrity podcast.
Oh, Ralph, thank you for having me. I'm really very honored that you would invite me to have this conversation. I think it's a really important dimension of leadership, and I love that you're lifting it up the way you are.
Yeah, so that our group can know a little bit about your personal and professional journey. Maybe you can start wherever you'd like and bring us up to date on all the things going on in your world and have gone on in your world, because you have a heck of a pedigree and they should know about it.
Okay. Well, I'll take a long, I'm 50, almost 53 years old. So this is going to take a long story, make it really short. I always knew when I was in high school, in college, that I wanted to have a purpose driven vocation. And there's a lot of reasons for that, where you come from and your family, your formative experiences, all of that. But it just was very important to me that I walk in this world in a way that maybe leaves the world a better place than where we were, right? And in some small way, let that be a part of my life. So really how I'm a social worker. Let's fast forward. So I have been in the nonprofit sector my entire career, have never, done anything other than that. And what led me to pursue a degree in social work and then ultimately get into working on economic security, food security, family support, and the issues that I've worked on, which I sort of was thinking about in preparation for this podcast, was I almost went to law school. So in my college years, I had an internship with a law firm. It was a great experience. It was good. But when I thought about integrity and sort of what integrity means, I think my path into social work was informed by when I was in this internship. Part of my responsibility was managing the political action funds of the law firm. And as you all know, it was sort of like give to both parties. And this is way back in the, 1990s. So we're not in the current environment we're in today, but, even then. And I just thought, gosh, I was super idealistic. I saw the law as a way to really help people. And so I was like, man, and it was a corporate law firm, which was great. They did great work, but I was like, I'm not sure this is for me. So that's what really set me on the path into social work. And I was really interested in questions around how is it that we know the kinds of supports we put in place, whether those are hunger relief supports, economic security supports, family support, mental health support. How do we know that those things are actually having a positive impact on people's lives? And how do we support access to those opportunities for people so that they can really live into their full potential? So anyhow, that set me on a journey. I've worked at the local, the state, the national level, and now the international level. And just prior to leading Ronald McDonald House Charities, I was the president and chief operating officer for Feeding America during the pandemic, where we really were experiencing incredible levels of food insecurity, as you know, and trying, like everyone else, to make sure we could overcome the challenges in the supply chain to get food to people. So that's the short version of how I am where I am today.
Well, that's fantastic. One of the things that's coming to mind when you say purpose-driven work, I think that's what you tied it to. I'm wondering if any of that was branched off of Rick Warren's work in the purpose-driven life from Saddleback.
Yeah,
Here.
It's funny. I mean, I think my calling, so to speak, I guess you could call it, predated that, right? Because I can't even quite remember when that book came out and when his work came out. But I resonate with it, right? Like I really can relate to that, which is work is work is work, and work is hard, right? And we're fortunate in this life if we can work and make a living and support our family, and know and believe that what we're doing is having a positive contribution to our community, to our society. And so I think that that's just that is part and post of what I, hear in his work, and what I think is really important for people. And it can show up in a whole lot of different ways. It doesn't mean you have to be in the nonprofit sector. So many for-profit ventures are contributing to the economy in critical ways, obviously creating jobs, creating innovation, new technologies that are changing lives, medicine. So it's just really about kind of listening to that inner part of yourself and making sure that there's alignment. This podcast about integrity, for me, it's about what you value and what's important to you being aligned with what you do every day and your behaviors. And when those things come together, that's where I think real happiness and fulfillment comes.
Yes. And a little bit of trivia for our audience. I think this is still an accurate stat that the purpose driven life is the second bestseller to the only.
There you go. There you go.
Right? That's
Right.
unbelievable.
Right.
Yes. And all the languages it was translated into and
Yep.
throughout the world. Well, tell us something back on the topic, particularly on integrity. Of course, alignment and congruency is for sure, and you're already touching on it. But when you think about the word integrity, what does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, I think it really, I sort of said it, but I think it really means for me, when my behaviors or situation I'm in is consistent with my values, it feels right. It's almost like in you can't really describe the feeling, but you feel right. You feel aligned. You feel consistent with like who you are is showing up. When when my behaviors or a situation I'm in is not consistent with my values, I know something's wrong. And I would say when my behavior is not consistent with my values, I might feel guilty about it. I might feel, it's that feeling where you haven't done something quite right, or maybe you've overreacted to someone, or you just haven't shown up as a leader consistent with the values of what you think are important, or as a mom or as a spouse or whatever it is. And so for me, integrity is alignment of those two things. Values, and they're different for different people, right? And your behaviors and your situation. And there have been plenty of times where in my life there's been dissonance, where you feel that dissonance, and you have to kind of sometimes ask yourself hard questions, look at yourself, sometimes get yourself out of a situation that you're in that isn't consistent with your values, and always work on that alignment. And that's really what it means for me.
Yes. Being congruent, being consistent inside and out, doing the right things that
Yep.
are right for you, which is an emphasis that not every one of our guests has spoke about. That most of our guests have spoke about doing the right thing as if that right thing is universal. And yes, I think there are many universalities in terms of the right thing. But what you're echoing is a very interesting part of the concept, is doing the right thing for you and making sure your inner values are being honored with your outward conduct and actions.
You bet. You bet. And I think, there are certainly consistent human values that we share that probably most people would, recognize as doing the right thing: empathy, love, compassion, generosity, honesty, forthrightness, all those things that I think we all, hopefully most of us, try to live into and be consistent with. But I do think it's more complicated when you're in situations, and I mean, I can tell you one from early in my career, if that would be helpful. But
Sure.
so again, thinking about this and thinking about talking to you, I went all the way back when I was early in my career. My husband and I had to relocate across the country for his work. And I sort of was leaving a bit of a dream job that I was in early in my career. But, he has a career as well. So we've always had to kind of take turns in our career and do what's right for our family. So we moved across the country, and I knew no one. And I basically had to sort of start over. So here I was in this position, and it was seemingly a great opportunity. I was making about a third of what I made before I came, but it was like I was ready to rebuild my career and do all that. And what I found in this organization, Ralph, is that, and it was a private organization, so these were not public funds. There wasn't anything super nefarious going on, but just really lacking leadership. So the leader of the organization would roll in at noon, take members of the staff shopping. Like there was nothing for me to do. And I was just like, what is this? Like, what is going on here? Right. And I grew up in a family with a strong work ethic and with that purpose driven sort of, orientation. And I thought, it doesn't matter how much I make or title or anything. I don't want to be in a place where I'm not feeling like I'm contributing to something meaningful, or I feel like people are kind of wasting these resources. Of course, they were private resources, so people can do with them what they want. So anyhow, long story short, I left. I was only there 3 months. I never put that experience on my resume because it was like such a blip. And I was new to this place, so I didn't want to, throw anyone under the bus or anything. They were private funds. So I just sort of said, I'm going to go find this other thing I want to do. And it was all good. And I stayed in good relationship with those folks. But that was like a moment of, again, like integrity. Like I'm in a situation where what I'm being asked to do is not in line with my values around my work ethic, what I think is appropriate for people if you're, getting a salary to do work that's meaningful to help community, which is the sort of setting I was in. Like I can't get these two things to line up. So I had to remove myself from that situation, which then I, sort of I made even less money. Now I've rebuilt my career and that's fine. But like the point is like sometimes you got to make hard decisions to stay in alignment with your values. And the path isn't always clear, but you have to trust your instincts and your values.
Yes, and not to be biblical, but I think it's appropriate. It is biblical. Follow not your temptations and be led not into evil is how I paraphrase that, right? So
There you go.
some things are shiny and we chase them and maybe we shouldn't.
That's right. That's right. So just, I think integrity is like that. Like everybody has it. You get a feeling right here and and when you were saying your guests say doing the right thing, like, what's right and what's not, you can feel it. And,
Yes.
And that's the hint that there's misalignment. Yeah.
Yes. Do you override that sense of feeling and vibration going on, or do you adhere to it? And when we adhere to it, yes, we're following our integrity for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Well, tell me the role that transparency and integrity plays in your organization and your organizational leadership style.
Yeah. So for me, it's really important. I lead a global organization that provides support to 250 other nonprofit organizations in 60 countries around the world. And they're all independent organizations, but we provide support, grants. We're sort of the repository for data. And so our job is be as transparent in our support, in our reporting, in making sure we also manage compliance and minimum standards, in making sure that we're supporting all of the Ronald McDonald houses around the world who are serving families, that families are getting a consistent and high quality experience from our tremendous partners out in the field. So for me, it's really important. When I took this job, some of the messaging that I shared with the CEOs of the local chapters, in addition to my team, number one, I said, hold me personally accountable. Like the buck does stop here. You should hold our entire team accountable, but you should be experiencing us with trust, with integrity, with forthrightness, with transparency to information and data that you need. And when you're not getting that from us, you need to let us know. And you should experience how we receive that information as affirming what you need and not as us getting defensive about that, because we are in this business to support our chapters so that they can support families. So we need to know if we're not hitting the mark. If we are hitting the mark, that's great to hear too. Everybody likes to hear when they're doing a good job. But so I really set out to say, hold us accountable for transparency, for quality service. Let us know what's working. Let us know what's not working. And I say that and live that in my leadership style with my team as well. And so it's really pretty common in my one-on-ones with the leaders who report to me. I often ask the question, what am I doing that's particularly helpful and affirming and supportive of you being able to do your job? And what am I doing that is not helpful and maybe getting in your way? And I want you to tell me. I have tough skin because in my experience, most humans don't intend to do harm, right? Like we are all figuring this out. And so it helps me for you to give me feedback. And it doesn't, I'm confident enough. I know I'm the leader, so it's not going to hurt my ego when you say, you know what, Katie, when you questioned me in this room, or when you delivered this feedback a certain way, or when you maybe micromanaged me on this project, like that didn't help me. Let me tell you how what would be helpful to me. And then we can have a conversation about it, right? Like that's where you can open up and actually have a conversation, and your relationship and your trust grows. So I think it's about being really willing to give and receive feedback to build trust, and transparency is a part of it. It's both transparency to the relationship and transparency to the information that you're using when you're working with people.
Yes, absolutely. Being transparent is part of our integrity, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we've
And
been talking with Katie Fitzgerald, the global president and CEO of Ronald McDonald House Charities. Have you heard that? 250 different places, 60 different countries. What a magnanimous thing you're doing. It's unbelievable. Really good work going on there from the folks I know who have been touched by the Ronald McDonald House locally here. I know the kind of work you're doing, and that organization is delivering for sure. Maybe you can share a little bit about that. I
sure.
wasn't planned, but maybe you can share a little bit about the granularity of what goes on in that world at a Ronald McDonald House for those that don't know.
Oh, I would love to. So basically, Ronald McDonald Houses were actually the vision of Dr. Audrey Evans, who was the first head of pediatric oncology at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And she is also known as the mother of neuroblastoma. So her work was credited with reducing the mortality rate for neuroblastoma in children by 50% to this day. So she's well known globally for this work, but in treating children back in the 60s and really in the 70s, in the late 60s, early 70s, she noticed that parents and families had nowhere to stay when their children were hospitalized. They didn't have food to eat. They had to quit their jobs or leave their jobs to travel across the country for this specialized care. They needed emotional support. And so she had this idea to create a house where families, parents especially, could stay when their children were hospitalized. And long story short, by happenstance, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Fred and Fran Hill, who are out of California, had a child, Kim, who was dealing with leukemia. And the Philadelphia Eagles got involved in raising funds for her.
Fred was a player on the team.
Fred was a player on the team.
And I think owner Leonard Toast was at the time.
Totally. Leonard Toast got really involved. And then Jimmy Murray, who was the general manager at the time, reached out to McDonald's owner-operators to help raise money for this house, that they all were wanting to help Dr. Evans fulfill this vision. And the McDonald's owner-operators sold Shamrock Shakes for the first house in Philadelphia, which was in 1974. So what happened then was just total. It's what happens when there's an innovation and a gap that no one's filling. It spread like wildfire. So NFL teams, hospitals, other doctors who learned of this, it spread to Chicago, it spread to Denver, across the United States in the early 1980s, Canada, Australia. And now today we have almost 400 Ronald McDonald houses that those 250 organizations manage in 60 countries. And we have another almost 300 what we call Ronald McDonald family rooms inside hospitals, some of which are kind of houses inside hospitals. They have sleeping rooms and everything. But what's really important for people to understand is that, yes, it's a place to stay, it's food, it's support. Some of our houses have accredited schools inside them for the siblings so they don't fall behind in school. We have social emotional support for families, because obviously when your children are seriously ill or injured, you're depressed, there's anxiety. So it's a total care environment. And McDonald's, to their credit, I'd like to say this, I feel like they're, as far as I know, the only company in the world who helped start a public charity 50 years ago and has supported that public charity every single day for 50 consecutive years. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year without skipping a beat, and they support us globally. So every country that McDonald's operates in supports Ronald McDonald House Charities, and it's just been a tremendous partnership. Millions of families are served each year. And last year alone, we saved families almost about $736 million in their out-of-pocket expenses that they otherwise would have had to spend on housing and food to be able to care for their children.
My gosh. My gosh. And Fred Hill, I mentioned I know him. He's a McDonald's franchisee.
Yep.
I think he's still operating here in Southern Cal.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fred and Fran have been not only part of that visionary founding group, but have supported the Southern California chapters, and really they've traveled all over the world, sharing their story with other chapters, helping local organizations in all parts of the world launch their houses. And it's a tremendous legacy of the love that they had for their daughter, Kim.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could, we have an audience. Some of the folks are kind of early in their career, starting up. Maybe share a little bit about the things that you can remember doing that were those keys and those inside tips that you have, and then the things you know today that you would say to the younger folks who are starting out, whether they're in the nonprofit, for profit, their own businesses, working for the organization. What are some of the things you would share with that group?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll start with sort of what I feel like I might reflect on from my own early career that I think is still true today. And of course, I have the total privilege of leading teams now where there are a lot of young professionals too. So I think about this a lot. I think some of the best advice to keep giving young people entering the workforce, and it's really not new, is do your best and try to do more, right? And there's a lot of conversations in our organization about career pathways and stretch assignments and all that sort of thing, which is really important. But what I would say is raise your hand and be the one to really lean in and try to do more. And don't worry about being perfect. Do your best. I tell my kids this all the time, like for their exams or for their work, like if you've done your best, that's all you can do. That's all you have control over. And you can't worry about how other people might view you or get spun up in your anxiety about that. Like what you control is your own performance and how you show up. So that's like number one. I think for sort of as they get further in their career, I think what's really helpful for people to start to practice right away is like inviting feedback and and giving feedback. And I think for young professionals, it's probably a little more like inviting and receiving that feedback. And like we were talking earlier, um, you got to kind of harden your ego a little bit, I think, in life and in work, and be willing to ask the people you're working for or your colleagues, how could I be a better partner to you? How could I show up a little bit better in this work? Even if you think that you're hitting all the marks and you're doing great, like be vulnerable enough and self-aware enough to know no one's perfect, and that includes us. And so, ask for that, because people will tell you, and they're generally pretty kind about it. Like, it helped me if you do this, it helped me if you do that. And every one of those little conversations makes you a more effective employee and makes you a more effective leader. And you learn, so it's being really open to feedback. And I think as people progress in their career, getting better at giving fast feedback, because it is easier to get it than it is to give it. Like, so, that's a skill that you have to develop, is how do you share feedback in a way with people that's affirming and lifts them up, in a way that they know that you want to be a better partner to them and help them be even better in their work. So those are the things that I think a lot about, that are like essential building blocks for being successful.
Yes, great input and guidance and wise sage advice. Well, we've been here with Katie Fitzgerald, and I'm sure some folks in our audience are wondering how they could maybe get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about Ronald McDonald House Charities. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you or your organization?
Yeah, they can reach out to rmhc.org. And they also, and there, we have a message box there. If they want to reach out through our organization, go to our website, send a message in. If you'd like to set up time to talk to me, you can find me on LinkedIn, and message me there, and engage with me there, because I'm always open to that. Love to meet people, love to share our story, but really like to learn about others as well. So I would say go to our website, rmhc.org, or find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect.
Wonderful. It's been a delightful better part of a half hour spending it with you, Katie. I really appreciate you coming on the Power of Integrity podcast and really being a heck of an example of integrity, transparency, and alignment. Thank you
Thank,
so much.
thank you, Ralph. Thanks for the opportunity.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. This information does not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through Kovac Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through Kovac Advisors, Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with Kovac Securities, Inc. or Kovac Advisors, Inc.